अच्छा चलो ठीक है. First thing, organic chemistry से start कर लेते हैं. The first thing about organic chemistry is कि क्या idea? What is organic chemistry? Well, it's यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ, it's the chemistry of carbon compounds. ठीक है, that's what organic chemistry is. अच्छा लेकिन so that's what organic chemistry is. It's the chemistry of carbon compounds. So what are carbon compounds in real world? It's first thing, all living organisms, they are carbon compounds. आपके जितने भी living organisms है, they all are carbon compounds. We are made out of carbon. ठीक है, our skin, our cells, our hair, ठीक है, everything is basically a carbon compound. Trees, plants, etc. Everything, that's all organic. ठीक है, so we are all organic. So living organisms, and there's a thing that is made out of living organisms, or any chemistry that's related to living organisms. ठीक है, that's medicine. ठीक है, you might have मेडिसिन, प्लांट्स के साथ कुछ भी, पेस्टिसाइड्स, इंसेक्टिसाइड्स, so that entire field of biology, that's all organic. And there's another thing that's organic, and that's fossil fuels, because fossil fuels are made from living organisms. Dead plants and animals, after billions of years of getting compressed in the Earth's crust, they turn into fossil fuels that are carbon-based fuels. So fossil fuels are also organic. Okay, so आपके main two big industries, anything that's related to humans, living organisms, any chemistry that's related to that, that's all organic. That's all carbon-based compounds. And fossil fuels. So the whole world basically runs on fossil fuels, so it's all organic. The next thing is why is carbon, why did nature choose carbon as the building block of all living organisms? And the reason for that is that carbon makes 4 very, very strong bonds, and it makes 4 bonds. So it's an atom that makes a lot of bonds. So अगर आपने complex structure draw करना, if you want to make a complex structure, you need an atom that makes a lot of bonds. Because if you have an atom that makes just one bond, it would be very hard for you to actually make a complex structure. Okay, is this idea clear?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's one thing. So it's very easy to make complex structures like a human being, okay, out of an atom that makes 4 bonds. Carbon is also kind of inert as well. Okay, जैसा आपका जो आपके बाल है ना, ठीक है, your hairs. You don't want your hairs to react with other things. Okay, imagine your hairs started rusting or they started dissolving in water. You don't want that to happen. So carbon-based compounds are also kind of inert. Okay, your plastic bags, most of your plastics and polymers, they're all carbon-based. Our skin does not react with other things. Normally it doesn't. Okay, so you don't want, like, you make a human and it starts reacting with other things. You don't want that to happen as well. So carbon is also good because it's kind of inert. It's the basic backbone structure is going to be inert. I say, anyways, the first thing is you need to know how to make the right number of bonds. So remember, group 4 always makes 4 bonds. Normally it makes 4 bonds. Carbon and silicon are in group 4. Group 5, it's nitrogen and phosphorus. They make 3 bonds because they need 3 electrons. You've got group 6, which is going to make 2 bonds, like oxygen and sulfur. And you've got group 7, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine. They usually make 1 bond. That's it. So you need to know who makes how many bonds. And this is what your structural formula looks like. You'll be very often asked to draw structural formulas. And your structural formulas are based on the number of bonds that each atom can make. Okay? So carbon makes 4 bonds, right? So you can look at these structures, all 4 of them. In all of them, you'll see that carbon is making 4 bonds. Okay? This is carbon making 4 bonds. This is carbon making 4 bonds. This carbon is also making 4 bonds, double bond, single bond, single bond. So everywhere carbon is making 4 bonds. So when you draw a structural formula, make sure your atoms are making the right number of bonds. Here's a carbon that's making 4 bonds, 2 over here, 1 over here, 1 over here. This carbon is also making 4 bonds. This carbon is making a triple bond, but it's making 4 bonds, 3 bonds over here, 1 over here. Okay. So is this idea clear that whenever you draw a structure, carbon is going to make 4 bonds? Is that part clear? And similarly, the other ones, what about nitrogen? It's always going to make 3 bonds. So look at nitrogen over here, it's making 3 bonds. Look at nitrogen over here, that's making 3 bonds. Look at nitrogen over here, that's still making 3 bonds. That nitrogen is also making 3 bonds. So nitrogen everywhere is making 3 bonds. Is that clear? And or बाकियों में भी apply होगा. Oxygen will always make 2 bonds. So oxygen is making 2 bonds. There's oxygen over here that's also making 2 bonds. Then you have oxygen over here that's making 2 bonds. Oxygen over here that's making 2 bonds. And the same applies to fluorine, chlorine. So the first thing is you need to learn how to draw correct structures. Okay? Or so here's a simple exercise that I'm going to do. And in this simple exercise, I'm going to draw an incomplete structure. So here's an incomplete structure. I said, right? First thing, by looking at this structure, I've made one thing. I made a lot of things incorrect, right? First, tell me, how many bonds does carbon make? I mean, this carbon over
4.
here. 4, right? So let's imagine
Yes.
I've got a bucket that has a lot of hydrogen atoms, right? So hydrogen makes us 1 bond. So how many hydrogens should I attach with this first carbon over here, this one?
3.
Okay, so I would, because carbon needs to make 4 bonds. So now carbon is making 4 bonds. Is that clear?
Yes.
How many bonds would this carbon make? And let's say I have
4.
I said 4 bonds, right? It needs to make 3 more bonds, right?
Yes.
So this carbon will have 3 H's. It could be anything, but abhi assume karo कि I have a bucket that has hydrogen atoms. It could be other atoms as well. But let's just practice with hydrogen. Achha, what's wrong with this carbon right now? The middle
It
one.
has 5 bonds.
So it should not have 5 bonds. It should have 4 bonds. So there's an extra C which should not be there. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Now it's fine, right? This carbon is making 4 bonds, right? What about this
Yes.
carbon? Is everything all right with this carbon atom, this one?
Yes.
And then you have, what about this carbon? How
No.
many H's should I attach with this one?
3.
And what about that oxygen over there? Is that fine? Oxygen is in group 6.
It needs 1 of hydrogen.
Okay, so it should be making 2 bonds as well, right? So it needs 1 hydrogen. Okay. So you clear? Afnan, Qasir, everyone, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll just practice this. And I'm going to draw some more incomplete structures. Triple bond. I've got an N. So tell me which atom needs, let's say again, I've got a bucket of H atoms. So where should I attach an H?
To the left carbon.
Okay, the first carbon should be making 4 bonds, right? So it's not right now. So I'm going to attach an H. Second carbon, is that fine?
Yes.
What about the nitrogen over here?
Yes.
Okay, that nitrogen is also. Nitrogen makes group 5, that's 3 bonds, right? Oh, it's like group 7 needs 1 electron, so that's 1 bond. Group 6 needs 2 electrons, so that's 2 bonds. Group 5 needs 3, so that's 3 bonds. Group 4 needs oxygen. Group 6.
It's fine.
Okay, that's also fine. Let's draw. This is known as a cyclic structure. So you can see that you can make complicated structures out of carbon because carbon makes a lot of bonds. So you can make all sorts of complex structures out of it. And I've got a Cl. And let's say I've got a double bond and N. So opposite, you've got a bucket of H atoms. So starting with this O.
It needs 1 H, 1 hydrogen.
So I'm going to attach. Now it's fine, right? What about
Yes.
this carbon?
It also needs one hydrogen.
It also needs one H. What about this nitrogen over here?
It needs two H's.
Do you remember nitrogen makes 3 bonds, so that's 2 H's. What about this carbon?
It needs one H as well.
So that needs 1 H. अच्छा फिर इसी तरह आगे आ जाओ. This carbon, how many H's?
Two.
Okay, so it's you're going to attach 2 H's. And it doesn't depend, like it doesn't matter where it attaches, because I mean you could draw the H's on the other side as well. As long as it's pointed to the same carbon, it doesn't really matter, right? What about this carbon?
No, teacher, that one's fine. But the nitrogen needs one
That
H.
the nitrogen over here needs 1 H, right? What about this carbon over here?
Two H's.
So that needs 2 H's, and finally this carbon.
One H.
Is the Cl fine?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So that's like the complete structure now. So that's so first thing is you need to know who makes how many bonds, so you're able to draw the correct structure. I mean, just the idea. We'll learn how to draw correct structures for different molecules later on, but just the idea, by looking at a molecule, you should know that you've drawn a correct structure or an incorrect structure. For example, all of these 3 structures are correct. All of the structures that you see in the screen over here, they're all correct. Okay, so that's the first thing. That you should know how to draw correct structures. And before moving on, I'm going to show you condensed formulas on the same. Now there's a thing in organic chemistry, that in organic chemistry you've got a lot of carbon chains, because organic structures are carbon based. There'll be other things attached to it, but mostly it's going to be a bunch of carbon atoms all pointed to each other. So let's say you've got a straight chain. This is known as a straight chain. No branches, nothing. ठीक है, जैसा पिछले वाले थे ना, they were all branched, like there were things coming out of it, going to the side. This one is like a straight chain. Now, how many H's do you have on the first carbon? That's 3, right? Is that clear?
Yes.
This one will have how many H's? 2 H's, right? This one will have 2 H's as well. So this one also has 2 H's. Just hold on one second.